Richard Prangley's compelling personal story and his crusade to reform Michigan's services for people with developmental and psychiatric disabilities was the kind of reporting most journalists dream of doing.
Well, I was a feature writer at the State Journal at the time, and one day in January of 1980, Richard came walking in through the door there with a big sheath of papers and a story to tell, and he insisted on speaking to an editor, a woman named Marcia Van Ness, who eventually went over and spoke to him, and Richard began telling Marcia his story. Now, being an editor, she wouldn't be the person who would interview him, so she looked around for a reporter that wasn't doing anything, and as I said in my book, I was the slowest to duck, and got called over to Richard and shook hands with him and started talking, and I thought, you know, either this guy is lying or he's got a heck of a story to tell.
And I got to talk to him, and after a while, after a year or two down the road, I got to know John Schneider, and he got interested and took me under his wing and got to know his family when his kid still was a baby, and got known Sharon. So he just got interested in me.
The first story I wrote, probably a week after I spoke to Richard, I did a little investigating to make sure that what he was telling me was accurate. My first call was to a psychologist at MSU named Alex Cade, who interviewed Richard and told me that he had some minor learning disabilities, but that his intelligence was extremely high and that he was functional. And so I talked to some more people and ended up writing a page one story maybe a week or 10 days after we first spoke.
That story became the first of many stories about Richard that John Schneider would write. Eventually, the idea for a biography of Richard was floated, and John became the logical choice to author the book. The busy father took a brief leave of absence from the Lansing State Journal, further committing weekends and evenings to the project. Eventually, Richard's amazing story emerged in Schneider's book, Waiting for Home.
Yeah, and then I waiting for home all those years and never got to go home. Holidays and Christmas, that is the most bitter part of all in my life, never got to go home. When people with worst case there got to go home on vacation, I never, that's the idea, I just never had the luck.
So I think the title of the book, Waiting for Home, is kind of speaks to that sense that that Richard always had, that he sort of, you know, became excommunicated and disconnected from his family. And that's the one thing that he can never really recapture. I mean, he's made a lot of friends and people who are like brothers and sisters to him, but I think he would agree with this, that he's always going to feel that one element of that family that he longed for, especially when he was young, is gone forever, and that's something he's never going to know. He's made extraordinary efforts to try to reconcile with his family, even though they're the ones who ought to be making the effort.
During the 15 years Richard resided in Coldwater, John and Dorothy Prangley and their children had gradually disengaged from their son and brother.
I mean, they were pretty much saying, you know, he can't live outside of an institution, and now he has proven that he can, and not only live but thrive, and so that really caused them to question their decision. Everything that Richard accomplished was a further indictment of their decision in putting him in the home. I tried to interview his relatives for the book. One of his sisters agreed to be interviewed, but then canceled. His parents didn't want anything to do with the project. You know, and I can sort of understand why. That there really wasn't a lot they could say that would, you know, justify what happened. There's just something about Richard's personality that makes people want to help him. We get together for movies and dinner all the time. He's been to my house many times for dinner, sometimes Christmas or Easter or just for whatever reason.
The Schneiders were not the only family to adopt Richard. The Jubeck family, the proprietors of Clara's Lansing Station restaurant, got to know Richard as a regular customer.
Yeah, that was quite a while ago. I known eating at Clara's as long as I worked for the state. So I came a good friendship with the Jubecks. And yeah, I'd go home with them on Thanksgiving holidays. And Pete made sure I was well taken care of, well loved. He was like the dad to me. Called me son. No one never ever called me son once in my lifetime. Never. And I call him dad. So that was a very wonderful family that got to know the Jubecks.
Richard also has another distinction due to his friendship with the Jubeck family. His own table in the train car, Richard's favorite section of the restaurant.
I've learned as much from Richard, certainly, as he's learned from me, and especially having been the father of a developmentally disabled daughter. I achieved many insights into that situation by knowing Richard.
I fooled the system. I fooled my family members, and all I can do, and I showed them.
Anybody would say that for Richard, just to succeed in his own life would be more than anybody would expect, given his history. But to go beyond that and actually become an advocate for the disabled, that just puts it into a whole new realm.
Living a good life I never had growing up. I appreciate being independently, and it makes me feel a lot more proud. This is my reward, and I'm glad to have a nice lady in my life, and it's the blessing that the guardian angel I got to meet with Charmaine Hornbeck, and got a good companionship in my life, and this is a new beginning of my life now, retiring, got my own home. And nobody never even dreamed I became a homeowner.
So, has Richard retired from advocacy too?
My job isn't done until I say it's done.